Good morning, dears. Welcome back to English class. Today it's time for us to check another summary of an interesting story, The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. So let's start. The story The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde is an interesting story of a statue of a prince and a little boy. Once there stood a statue of a happy prince on a tall column in the city. He was gilded all over his body with the gold and precious stones. He had thin leaves of fine gold. He had two bright sapphires for eyes. A large ruby glowed in his sword hilt. Once a little swallow came and sat on the statue. He decided to spend the night on it. But as he was going to sleep, a large drop of water fell on him. The swallow was amazed. There was no cloud, yet it rained. The second drop of the water made the swallow desire to fly off. The third drop of water made him to look at this statue, and he could see it was weeping. Then the statue spoke to the swallow. It said that when it was alive, it had not known what tears were. His courtiers called him a happy prince. Now he sat very high. He saw the mysteries of the city. Then the happy prince told the swallow that there lived a woman far away. She was a seamstress. She was embroidering flowers on the satin gown of the queen's maid of honor. The maid was to wear it at the next court ball. In the bed there lay ill her little boy. He was suffering from fever. The happy prince asked the swallow to pick the ruby from his sword hilt. He should give that to that woman. Then the swallow said that his prince had gone to Egypt. He was waited for in Egypt, but the happy prince requested him to stay one night. The swallow agreed then. He picked up the ruby and flew to the woman's house. He put the ruby near the woman's temple. He also fanned the boy's forehead. The boy felt a bit better. He sank into a deep slumber. The swallow flew back to the happy prince. He felt warmer though it was cold. The happy prince told him that it was because he had done a good act. The swallow wanted to fly to Egypt, but the happy prince told him to stay there one more night. He told the swallow that he saw a playwright in a little room. He was trying to finish a play for the director of the theatre, but he was too cold to write. He was hungry also. He asked the swallow to pluck one sapphire from his eye and give that to the playwright. The playwright saw the sapphire. He was happy. Now he hoped to finish the play. The swallow went to the happy prince and he told him that he had come to bid him goodbye. But the happy prince asked him to stay one more night. Then the happy prince told the swallow that there was a little match girl in the square below. All her matches had fallen in the gutter. Her father would beat her if she didn't bring home some money. She was crying. He asked the swallow to pluck out the other sapphire from his other eye and give it to that her. The swallow flew with the sapphire. He put the sapphire into the little girl's hand. The swallow flew back to the happy prince. He told the prince that he would stay with him as he had gone blind. The happy prince asked him to fly over the city and tell him what he saw. He also told the swallow that the most marvelous thing was human suffering, and human misery was the greatest mystery. The swallow flew over the city. He saw hungry children. He also saw many poor people. The happy prince asked him to take leaf after leaf of the fine gold over his body and give it to them. The poor now laughed and the children played. Then there came the snow and then frost. Everything looked white. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder. But he didn't leave the happy prince. However, he could no longer keep himself alive. He at last knew that he was going to die. The swallow asked the prince to let him kiss his hand. The prince told him that he was happy he was going to Egypt. So he told him to kiss him on the lips. But the swallow told him that he was not going to Egypt. He was going to the house of death. And he fell down dead. At that moment there appeared a crack inside the statue. The heart of the happy prince broke into two. The dead swallow lay at its feet. The very next morning, the mayor and the town councillors came that way. They looked at the statue. They declared that the happy prince was no longer happy and beautiful now. So he was no longer useful. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. But the broken heart didn't melt. It was thrown away then. Later, God asked one of his angels to bring him the two most precious things in the city. The angel brought him the leaden heart of the happy prince and the dead bird. God told that in the garden of paradise the little bird would sing forever, and the happy prince would praise him forever in his city of gold. Here ends our beautiful story by Oscar Wilde. Hope you have enjoyed the story. It's a very simple story, but it's important too, especially on exam based. It is very important. You can expect summaries from this part for the exam. Thank you.